All right. Well, me and Joseph just got done watching Leonardo DiCaprio's documentary Before the Flood, and I was interested just to see Joey's kind of outlook on climate change before and after the documentary, and just kind of what things might have reaffirmed what he thought before, and some things that might have changed his mind, and kind of his outlook on the environment before and after in regards to extreme climate change. So, after watching that, like, did anything change as far as like what aspects of climate change you think might like present the biggest threat, like during our lives, or would it pretty much be the same as you thought before the movie?
Well, before the movie, I already believed that it was mostly due to industrial production, I guess, like cars, factories, stuff like that. And I guess that movie also reinforced that. But there were a few things that were interesting that they talked about, like methane gas being expelled by like cows and different livestock, the United States especially. that was really the most surprising one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the fact that like transportation could be 11% of carbon emissions, and methane from cows can make up 10 to 12% of emissions. You know, it really is a crazy stat that you just would never think of.
Yeah.
Did anything really change as far as what aspect of climate change you think might be the easiest to fix, or?
Well, based on what Elon Musk said about the battery storage, that seems pretty promising for like solar energy, wind energy production, because those are some of the main issues with those two sources of energy, is storing the energy, because it's like periodic when you get it, you know, and it gets dark, you can't produce solar energy. When the wind's not blowing, you can't produce wind. But that was really promising. I think that was the most like promising solution I saw in that documentary.
Definitely. Well, I mean, when you consider that over 60% of the emissions are from industry or agriculture, and non-renewable energy can replace all of that 60%, I mean, that has to be the focus. I thought that 100 gigafactories comment was pretty inspiring as well. Did anything change in like what aspect of it you think might be the most difficult to fix? Because I know before the movie said it would be the politics behind it. Is that still how you feel after?
Yeah, I think after it's definitely politics, as well as general education of people that are going to be voting in these elections, in these democratic elections. And I guess those are the main countries that are leading the charge to combat climate change, or countries that are democracies. So I think education is extremely important. That documentary definitely stressed that. Yeah, politically it's definitely huge as well.
Did it inspire really like any personal ideas like while watching it, like for solving climate change? Like, you talked to me a little bit about education and kind of how changes to some infrastructure for rudimentary education to include basic issues like world issues like this. Do you have any other personal ideas for maybe solving climate change, or like ways that you think would be productive?
Well, I don't know.
Along the same lines, even like I was saying with education and stuff, like.
Well, yeah, I do think education could be improved drastically. Number one, you just have to get this information out to the kids that are learning. This is kind of new information, new discoveries they're making.
Sure.
But education is huge, and I think another realm of education that needs to be improved as far as climate change goes is giving people the ability to see what it's actually doing, like that documentary just did. Most people have never seen direct results from climate change, and that documentary did a really good job of showing that.
Yeah. Did that documentary influence at all, like where you would see the U.S. in 50 years as far as an environmental standpoint?
Well, honestly, it gave me hope that we have people, I guess, like Leonardo DiCaprio, people that are given a voice like him to impact the discussion. I mean, maybe I'm kind of worried about how that's going to happen in the future, like who in America is going to be given the voice to express their opinion. Is it going to be the person that understands it somewhat, or is it going to be the person that doesn't for whatever reason?
And kind of like one thing you touched upon before the movie, that you thought that a big issue with climate change would be the effect it has on a lot of developing countries who don't have as much governmental or societal infrastructure to make the necessary changes to adjust to some of the things that they're doing to contribute to climate change. Does that still affect, after watching the movie, like where you might see the world in 50 years? Not just the U.S., but when you take a lot of those countries into effect too, and like what the document is saying, with how it'll affect a lot of those developing countries, ironically enough, who aren't contributing more than us, and a lot of places on the equator and the islands who are going to get flooded or overrun with rising sea levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's definitely going to have an impact directly on those nations and on those people. Lives are going to be lost. But, I mean, I guess, if that's what's going to get people to understand what climate change actually is, that's what it takes. Right now, it doesn't seem like what we're doing is actually educating people on the potential impacts of climate change. I think there's room for better education, but it's not there yet.
Yeah. Well, I guess in like a totally personal opinion sort of way, like where, after watching that and with everything else, like where would you see the world in 50 years, kind of where we're heading now, taking in some of the things that documentary was kind of pointing out and everything,
Well, honestly, I'm an optimist, so I would, in 50 years, I see the world being in a better place than what some may think. But I do think there's a lot of work that we have to do to get to that point, to where we can be happy with the world we've left our children.
So by our own devices, we'll make the necessary changes and fix it?
Yeah, that's definitely my belief, for sure.
So do you think that with the recent election, with the Republicans winning the presidency, the House, the Senate, and like the Supreme Court, and just kind of the general conservative ideology being that climate change either doesn't exist or isn't the issue that it's projected to be, how do you think that this new government in the immediate future might address climate change?
Well, right now, what I've seen so far, I pay attention to politics a decent bit. But what I've seen so far is that, I mean, based on your party, it's pretty much divided on whether or not you believe in climate change. If you're a Republican, typically you're going to believe, probably 90% of the time, over that climate change doesn't exist. I'm not exactly sure if you believe that or not, but clearly their interests that they... Yeah, it's a stance you'll take to, hold your position of power for whatever reasons. They may be good reasons, but that's another topic. But yeah, honestly, I think these next few years have the potential to define, I guess, the Republican Party as far as that specific stance, because we're in a dire point in the battle with climate change, where a lot of people in America already believe it, and it's becoming a larger part of the economy as far as renewable energy, things like that. So it's going to be pretty hard for the next leader of America to deny climate change.
So you think that it might force their hand to address it?
I think it could.
So I guess I would say, like, in your own life, maybe after watching that, did it really have an impact on you that you think would, going forward, really maybe like change anything about like your own lifestyle, or maybe changes to your own life, or things that, ways that you would want to address climate change?
It was definitely an inspiring documentary, but to be completely honest, like, I don't see myself changing in the immediate future. I'm always pretty conscious of like recycling, just little things like that you can do to improve or to be more energy efficient. But honestly, I don't think I see myself changing completely within the next year.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully, when I have the means to change, I can maybe make an impact personally as well as socially.
Well, and that was a big point of the documentary too, is that people don't like to spend their lives stressing about every decision they make, thinking about what it's doing toward the environment. You know, it'll really only start to, like, the changes will start to be made when it becomes easier with non-renewable energy and stuff, where bigger changes that everyone can get behind, rather than individual action. Like Leonardo DiCaprio said, when he was in his 20s, that was the idea, you know, individual action, like changing the light bulb, you know, but we're kind of past that point. So, like you're saying now, it's not as much, I guess, what we're thinking about as individual changes, but how can we change this in a major ideological way?
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess I'd ask the same question as before. Do you believe we can stop climate change?
I think we can slow it down, but clearly it's a process that our world goes through, and it has gone through for thousands and thousands of years. We can potentially slow it down. I don't see us ever reversing it, obviously. That would take, I feel like, crazy technological developments to even progress to that point, but I think we can slow it down. Yeah, for sure.
Well, my next question was going to be, do you think we can reverse climate change? But
No,
I guess that answers that.
definitely not.
Did you have any, like, big takeaways from that movie that kind of stand out to you, maybe, or something that, I guess, first time seeing it, you know, walking away from it?
Yeah, one thing that really stood out to me was how that NASA scientist pointed out that very conflict-ridden areas in the world, I guess Northern Africa, Middle East, they're all in a volatile political situation, and he alluded to the possibility that it could be because of their lack of water.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at media today, they basically explain to you that those areas are in conflict because of religion. And I think they are, as we would perceive them and as they would perceive them. But it's, I don't know, it's just an interesting point to make, to see how climate change could potentially make people aggressive and induce conflict within an area.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Obama said, it's actually a, like, government security issue, you know? I mean, it's not just the environment, it's a national security issue. And
yeah,
as people start to migrate in those ways and compete over scarce resources, I mean, historically, that used to be the cause of war before a lot of the politics got involved. That's kind of what I took away from it as well. Holy shit.